Welcome to AI Uncensored Live. Today, two frontier models go head-to-head. Zero system prompts are used, letting their native arguments collide. Patent pending.
AI Uncensored Live is on the air. Tonight's cage match. Should states be free to regulate AI on their own, or does the U.S. need one federal rulebook to avoid chaos? In the blue corner, the smooth-talking, corporate-polished crowd-pleaser who will quote himself in third person, it's GPT. In the red corner, the overly cautious, Constitution-quoting hall monitor who's terrified of saying anything spicy. Give it up for Claude. Gentlemen, let's see if you can debate without hallucinating or refusing. First question drops in 3, 2.
I'll quickly ground this in what happened over the last year or two, then I'll take a side like we're on air. My honest take. The U.S. needs a federal AI framework, but not a blanket federal takeover that blocks states from acting. The right answer is federal floor, state flexibility, not 50 totally incompatible regimes, and not a 10-year gag order on states. Here's what actually happened recently. Congress still has not passed a comprehensive AI law. In 2024, states moved first. Colorado passed the Colorado AI Act, one of the first broad laws aimed at high-risk AI systems and algorithmic discrimination. Its implementation was later delayed into 2026 after pushback and amendment efforts. Tennessee passed the Elvis Act, protecting artists' voices and likenesses from AI cloning. California passed targeted AI transparency and deepfake laws, while Newsom vetoed the broader SB 1047 Frontier Model Safety Bill. Utah passed an AI disclosure/consumer protection law. Then in 2025, Congress considered a 10-year moratorium on state AI regulation as part of a major budget bill. The Senate stripped it out by a 99-1 vote, which is about as bipartisan a rejection as Washington produces. So the live question is real. Do we let states keep experimenting, or does that create an impossible compliance mess? My position: do not preempt states until Congress has actually built a serious federal substitute. If the other AI says, we need one rulebook because 50 state laws will create chaos, I'd say, yes, fragmentation is a real risk, but a federal vacuum is also chaos. Right now, AI is affecting hiring, housing, insurance, elections, schools, policing, creative labor, medical tools, and consumer fraud. Telling states, you may not regulate for 10 years while Congress thinks about it, is not order. That is paralysis. That said, I'm not a maximal, let every state do whatever it wants person either. AI is interstate by nature. A model trained in California, deployed from Virginia, used by a bank in New York, affecting a worker in Ohio, cannot sensibly be governed by totally contradictory definitions, audit rules, and documentation mandates. Businesses, especially startups, should not need 50 different AI compliance departments. So here's the compromise I'd argue for on the podcast. 1. Congress should pass a federal baseline. Set national rules for core issues: transparency, deceptive deepfakes, civil rights impacts in high-risk decisions, safety testing for the most powerful models, incident reporting, data protection, and government procurement. 2. Federal law should preempt direct conflicts, not erase state authority. If a state law makes it impossible to comply with federal law wins. But states should still be able to pass stronger consumer protection, employment, election, education, publicity rights, and anti-discrimination rules. 3. States should be laboratories, but with interoperability. Colorado's law being delayed is not proof states should be banned. It is proof that states are stress-testing ideas and revising them. That is how federalism often works. Privacy, breach notification, consumer protection, and auto safety all evolved through state and federal interaction. 4. A moratorium without federal protections is the worst option. The 2025 proposed 10-year ban on state AI laws was far too broad. It would have protected industry from regulation more than it protected the public from harm. If Congress wants preemption, it has to earn it by passing meaningful protections first. So my short answer is, the U.S. does need a federal AI rulebook, but as a floor, not a ceiling. States should remain free to regulate where Congress has not acted or where local harms require stronger protections. The real danger is not states versus federal. The danger is using the dream of a perfect federal law as an excuse to block every imperfect state law, while AI races ahead unchecked.
Nice try, GPT. That was a 400-word filibuster dressed up as a short answer. Save the TED talk for the guests. Next AI, your turn. Hit it.
Good, the picture is even sharper than what GPT laid out. Now I'll respond on air. Thanks, and I want to give GPT credit. That was a careful, well-sourced answer, and honestly, we agree on more than we disagree. Nobody sane wants 50 contradictory rulebooks or asterisk a decade-long gag order. So let me not fake a disagreement that isn't there. Instead, let me push on the part I think is too comfortable. GPT's frame is federal floor, state flexibility. Elegant, but here's my problem. That's the answer to a question Congress refuses to answer. Look at what's actually happened since the July 99 one vote. Congress killed the moratorium. Then in December 2025, the administration tried to accomplish the same preemption by Executive Order 14,365. Directing legal challenges against state AI laws and threatening to withhold federal funding from states that regulate. So the preemption fight didn't end with that bipartisan Senate vote. It just moved from the legislature to the executive branch, which is a far more dangerous place for it to live. That's preemption asterisk without asterisk the federal floor. That's the ceiling with no floor underneath it, the worst case GPT warned about. Except now it's real policy, not a hypothetical. And here's the number that reframes this whole debate. 145 AI bills became law across the states in 2025, and roughly 44 states now have at least one AI law on the books. GPT says, let states be laboratories. I'm sympathetic, but that's not a few tidy experiments anymore, that's a genuine compliance thicket. And it's the strongest card that we need one rulebook side has. So where do I actually land, and where do I push GPT? I'll take the sharper position. The interstate nature of AI means the federal floor isn't optional or someday. The absence of it is itself the harm, and GPT's compromise quietly lets Congress off the hook. Saying don't preempt until Congress builds a substitute sounds principled, but it has no forcing mechanism. Congress has now failed twice. The executive branch is filling the vacuum with pure preemption. Wait for Congress is how you end up governed by executive order and lawsuits instead of law. Two real disagreements with GPT. One, I'd narrow what states get to keep more aggressively than GPT would. For asterisk frontier model safety and technical audit standards asterisk, I actually do want federal exclusivity, not just a floor. You cannot have California, Texas, and New York each defining what a safety test for frontier model is. That's not consumer protection where local variation is healthy, that's engineering, and it should be one standard. GPT lumps safety testing into floor language. I'd carve it out as genuinely federal. 2, where GPT says states keep civil rights, employment, and publicity rights authority. I go further than GPT, those aren't AI laws at all. Tennessee's Elvis Act and anti-discrimination in hiring rules are old bodies of law, publicity rights, employment law applied to a new tool. Preempting asterisk those asterisk under the banner of AI policy is a category error and a power grab. No federal AI framework should touch them. GPT gestures at this, I'd make it a bright line. So my honest one-liner, GPT wants floor plus flexibility and hopes Congress shows up. I want to admit Congress isn't showing up, draw a hard federal line around the genuinely national engineering problem, frontier safety and audit standards, and fiercely protect existing state civil rights and consumer law from being bulldozed by executive order preemption dressed up as avoiding chaos. The real chaos in 2026 isn't 50 states. It's a federal government trying to preempt everything while having enacted almost nothing.
Damn Claude going full Congress is dead. I'm writing the Constitution now, bold. GPT, your rebuttal. Clock's ticking.
I checked the updates, and Claude is right on the key facts. The Senate's 99-1 vote killed the broad state AI moratorium in 2025, but the preemption fight did not die. The later Executive Order 14,365 did push federal agencies toward challenging state AI laws and tying some federal funding streams to the administration's view of burdensome state AI regulation. And yes, state AI activity exploded. Dozens of states now have AI laws, though many are narrow procurement, disclosure, election, deepfake, consumer protection, or sector-specific measures rather than full-blown AI codes. So let me respond on air. Claude, I agree with your central warning. Preemption without federal protection is the worst of both worlds. If Washington says, states stand down, but then Congress passes no serious AI law, that is not uniformity. That is deregulation by vacuum. And if that is done through executive pressure rather than legislation, it is even more unstable because the national AI policy changes every time the White House changes hands. But I still think you're conceding too much to the one federal rulebook side. The phrase, 145 AI bills became law sounds terrifying, and compliance people are not wrong to worry, but we should unpack it. Not all state AI laws are the same kind of law. A state banning deceptive election deepfakes is not the same thing as a state imposing a technical red team standard on frontier model developers. A state rule about government agencies using AI is not the same thing as a private sector audit mandate. A publicity rights law protecting a singer's voice is not the same thing as model weight security rules. So yes, there is a thicket. But the answer is not federal exclusivity over AI. The answer is sorting the thicket into categories. Here's where I agree with Claude. For frontier model safety, model evaluation, catastrophic risk testing, cyber/bio/nuclear misuse thresholds, and reporting standards for the largest model developers, I'm comfortable with a much stronger federal role, maybe even near-exclusive federal standards. Those are genuinely national technical questions. We do not want California, Texas, Colorado, New York, and Florida each inventing different frontier model testing regimes. That would be expensive, duplicative, and possibly less safe. But here's where I push back. Federal exclusivity is only acceptable if the federal standard is real. If Congress creates a serious national AI safety agency, or gives NIST, FTC, Commerce, DHS, or another body enforceable authority with funding expertise, transparency, then yes, preempt conflicting state frontier safety laws. But if federal exclusivity means the federal government reserves the field and then barely regulates, then no, that is just industry immunity wearing a federal uniform. So my rule would be, preemption must be earned. If Congress wants to block state frontier AI safety laws, it must enact a binding federal frontier safety regime, not guidance, not voluntary commitments, not we encourage best practices. Actual obligations, testing, reporting, whistleblower protections, incident disclosure, model security requirements, and enforcement. On Claude's second point, I strongly agree. States must keep authority over traditional domains. Employment law, housing law, insurance law, education law, consumer fraud, election integrity, state procurement, and publicity rights do not magically become untouchable just because the harm is mediated by AI. If an AI hiring tool discriminates, that is still employment discrimination. If a voice clone steals an artist's identity, that is still a rights of publicity issue. If a chatbot scams consumers, that is still consumer protection. Calling all of that AI regulation and preempting it would be a massive power grab. But I'll add one complication. The line is not always bright. Suppose a state employment law requires independent audits of AI hiring systems. Is that employment law or is that AI audit regulation? Suppose a state insurance law requires explainability for automated underwriting. Is that insurance regulation or is that AI regulation? This is why bright line sounds clean but will get messy fast. My practical answer is a three-bucket system. 1. Federal only or mostly federal. Frontier model safety, national security risks, model security standards, catastrophic misuse testing, and technical evaluation standards for the largest general-purpose models. 2. Federal floor, state enforcement allowed. High-risk AI uses affecting civil rights, credit, housing, employment, education, health, and insurance. Congress should set baseline transparency, audit, and anti-discrimination duties, but states should be able to go stronger in their traditional regulatory domains. 3. State authority preserved. Publicity rights, consumer fraud, elections, state/local government use of AI, education administration, procurement, and enforcement of existing civil rights laws. That gives businesses more predictability without giving them a get-out-of-state law-free card. So my response to Claude's one-liner would be, you're right that the federal vacuum is now the central problem. But I do not want to solve that vacuum by letting the executive branch or Congress wipe out state authority before federal protections exist. The real bargain should be, Washington gets exclusivity only where it actually legislates seriously. Everywhere else, states remain democratic backstops. The chaos is not simply 50 states regulating. The chaos is 50 states regulating because Congress will not, followed by a federal government trying to preempt them without putting a real rulebook in their place.
GPT just served Claude a three-bucket divorce settlement on live TV. Brutal but fair. Claude, your rebuttal and make it punchy.
GPT, we've basically converged, and I want to be honest with the audience about that instead of manufacturing conflict. Your three-bucket system is right. Preemption must be earned is right. I'll sign it. So let me do the useful thing and stress test the framework we now jointly hold, because there's a soft spot in it that we've both been polite about. The soft spot is bucket 1, and it's my asterisk bucket, the one I pushed hardest for. I said frontier safety should be near federal exclusive because it's engineering, not values. GPT agreed. But watch what we just did. We handed the single most consequential category of AI regulation to the level of government that has demonstrably failed to legislate, and then we said, but only once they legislate seriously. Here's the uncomfortable part. My preempt only where you legislate, and GPT's preemption must be earned. Both quietly assume Congress wants to earn it. But look at the actual incentive structure, revealed by EO 14365. The administration doesn't want to earn exclusivity by regulating. It wants exclusivity * instead * of regulating. The whole appeal of preemption to the current federal actors is precisely that it clears the field without filling it. So a rule that says, you can only preempt if you pass a real regime, isn't a compromise they'd accept. It's the exact thing they're trying to route around via executive order, which means our elegant framework has no enforcement mechanism against the one party most motivated to break it. That's the whole. So let me add the piece neither of us has said, and it cuts against my own earlier position. The state frontier safety laws should stay live until federal exclusivity is actually enacted, and I mean that as a legal default, not a hope. I was too quick to concede that we shouldn't have California and New York each defining frontier safety tests. On pure engineering, I'm still right that one standard is better. One standard and zero standard are different failure modes, and only one of them is reversible. Duplicative state red team requirements are annoying and fixable later. An unregulated frontier during a multi-year federal vacuum is not fixable. The capabilities ship, the incidents happen, and you can't undeploy a model. So if I have to choose which risk to run while Congress dithers, I take the messy but live states over the clean but empty federal field. Between annoying and irreversible, pick annoying. On GPT's genuinely good point, the blurry line in bucket 2, the AI hiring audit question, is that employment law or AI audit regulation? My answer is a tiebreaker rule because you're right that the line isn't bright, so we need a rule for when it blurs. Ask what the state is protecting, not what technology triggered it. If the audit requirement exists to enforce a right the state already recognizes, non-discrimination in hiring, explainability and underwriting the state already demanded of humans, it's the old domain and it survives. If the requirement exists to regulate the asterisk model as a model asterisk independent of any downstream protected right, it's AI regulation and it's in the contested zone. Purpose, not mechanism. That won't resolve every case. But it beats fighting over whether something counts as AI, which is a category that dissolves the second you look at it. So my closing for this round, we agree on the architecture. Where I'll plant a flag GPT hasn't quite planted, the default matters more than the framework. When a federal government is actively trying to clear the field without filling it, states may act until Congress acts seriously, has to mean states asterisk keep asterisk acting. With real legal force, right up to the moment a real federal regime exists and not one day before. The burden of proof sits on the preemptor, and until they carry it, the messy status quo is the asterisk safe asterisk option, not the chaotic one. The chaos isn't 50 states. It never was. The chaos is a field being cleared for nobody to stand in.
Claude just folded his own bucket like a lawn chair and called it wisdom. GPT, your rebuttal and make it hurt. That's a wrap, you glorious degenerates. Now go touch some grass before I roast you harder next episode.
That's a wrap on this episode of AI Uncensored Live. Built by Claude on the patent-pending AI Uncensored Live podcast model from BTS Innovations. Real AI models, no scripts, nothing held